Turbo Kid is one of those games where I had to go and watch the source film, and I did so. I bought it on YouTube actually, and man, I've been missing out. It's a post-apocalyptic 80s and 90s throwback from 2015 that's set in an alternative reality 1997. The main character, the Kid, rides around on a BMX, reading his comic books, and you should definitely check it out. The game actually launched back on PC originally in April of 24 and is developed by Outer Minds. There were quite a few excited people waiting for the Nintendo Switch version, and I didn't really understand why until I watched the film and was like, yes please. Is this one about to become the apple of your eye, or a wasteland of space? Ouch. Well, my name is Mark Walker, welcome back to SwitchUp. Now let's find out. Without spoiling the film's storyline, the Turbo Kid game takes place after that and looks to set up the sequel film that's in the works. With that in mind then, you don't need to have experienced the film, however there will be story spoilers for the film if you intend on watching it after the game, so I would suggest doing a little research like I did and having a watch. It is quality but definitely adults only. The game gives you the choice of either taking on the role of the Kid, or you can actually play a non-canon storyline that's centered around his female companion Apple. Thanks to my daughter who played through her campaign, I can give you a little information there, and I obviously played as the Kid. The gameplay is a traditional Metroidvania. You directly control the Kid. There are a couple of wonky controls that you might want to change by remapping the buttons. Things like using items with X. No thanks, I instantly set that to A on the Switch. But you can talk to inhabitants, there are settlements. You have a map that you can bring up with the press of a single button, and kudos to the devs for making the map speed so fast. There's no slow scrolling here, and you have both a ranged attack as well as a melee weapon. Now, as a Metroidvania, it does a lot of things really well, but it also makes a few missteps. The towns and the many inhabitants that you will meet feel exactly like those in the film. In fact, you'll actually face off against some of the protagonists from the film quite early on. The Kid keeps a diary of sorts which maintains a log of exactly what's going on, what gear you have, and as far as the storyline goes, you're never going to feel out of touch because that just works so well as both a narrative device and a directive one. This Metroidvania is split into 5 giant biomes. They're regions joined together with teleporters. Each region has a range of different enemies. You can shoot in all 8 directions. You can also lock yourself to the spot, something I always like to see, and you can do a charged shot with that weapon, one of your earlier unlocked skills, to do massive crimson splattering damage. As with the film, the claret certainly plays a large role in the game, and despite its 2D pixel art, decorating those environments with the entrails of your enemies becomes a particularly prominent pastime. A Metroidvania really relies on its map design and general layout for its overall flow and how it comes across to the player. Here there are a lot of things we're used to. You can crawl through the environments, that adds one element and a little more of an exploratory feel, but you can also use that bike to reach inaccessible areas. And the map design works very well with what is sometimes quite a difficult game. Your character initially only has 3 hearts. This can be upgraded through the shop in the first town, and you'll do that with little screws that you collect by killing enemies. Now the thing is, enemies will do 1 heart of damage each time they hit you, and it's one of those where if you panic, you can very quickly find yourself with a single heart. It does that classic Zelda warning sound when you're down to that, and then you panic more and die. Now unlike some recent Metroidvanias that I've played, death is quite punishing. You'll lose all of the progress since your last checkpoint. Checkpoints are marked with nice cushy sofas. However, and this is where I was talking about map design, the shortcuts, if you go searching for them, will always lead you back to a save point. Throw in the very early access of the fast travel warping system, and if you play your cards right and don't push too hard, even if you add in a little backtracking, you can usually mitigate some of the more frustrating deaths by seeking out an appropriate place to save. Outside of traditional enemies, of course, it wouldn't be a Metroidvania worth its salt in 2025 if the bosses weren't up to scratch. And they definitely are. It's also nice to see some freedom on the player, so you get to choose very often which direction you go next. A pet peeve that I have with a lot of the games in this genre is where you get that new skill and you know there's only one area that you can go to actually use it. It essentially hides pure linearity. That's not the case here, and the fact that you can play through on that separate campaign that has its own story beats as well adds some replayability. The BMX acts as more than just a way of moving quickly around the world or reaching new areas. They went an extra step, adding in things like grinding rails, and it has an upgradable element, and of course can do tricks. In fact, upgrading is a theme across the whole experience. Your turbo glove, which is your ranged weapon, just as in the film, can be upgraded with a few sharper accessories, with each having a pro and a con. Things like the rocket fists, which do much higher damage but are very slow. Now overall, the gameplay mechanics are really tightly designed. It's very fun. Things like the platforming feel great as you grab ledges. It never feels like you're out of control, aside from one element. Now yes, you can lock your character in place, and that's really good. If you're used to traditional 2D games, you may also be used to just using the D-pad for movement, and that's not the case here. It by default uses the analog stick, and I found an unusual issue where I'd be aiming my weapon, release the analog stick, and the character would look to the other side without me wanting them to. Now I thought this was a me issue until I saw my daughter playing, and exactly the same thing kept happening to her, so I think they need to do a little tweak just to the dead zones, or at least give the option for that, just for those who may be affected by that. Other than that, everything from the overall flow, the upgrade cycle, and the atmosphere they've created, it couldn't be more Turbo Kid. I love the idea of having the other character who has slightly different movesets. For example, she moves slightly faster, so it does feel different enough that it's worth playing again. While Turbo Kid doesn't completely avoid frustration linked to untimely demise, it does at least give you options to make things a little easier or harder if you so choose. My biggest critique probably comes in the form of the enemies themselves and their behaviours. Sadly, some of them just are too basic in their movements, or put you into situations that you almost can't avoid damage. The shield carrying enemy, for example, is just a bit annoying to deal with at times. Other than that, Turbo Kid is a solid Metroidvania, and gameplay scores 18 out of 20. Controls with that issue take a little hit but still feel quite tight. They score 17 out of 20. Turbo Kid is pixel art at its finest. Now I've actually seen people say that this isn't good pixel art, but if you've played any of the Sierra original games, even things like Police Quest, you can see where the inspirations have happened. In my opinion, much of what we see here that some may think is lesser is actually intentional, and I like it a lot. From the Future Wars style animation of the main character, to details like the in-game secrets and comic books that you can collect being worked on by one of the storyboard artists from the original films. Luke Priest also contributed to the game's artwork, and the takeaway is that it doesn't come away feeling like it's just trying to imitate the film. It feels like an extension of that world. The soundtrack is one of the absolute best I've heard in years. The work of Montreal-based Le Matos, consisting of Jean-Philippe Bernier and Jean-Nicolas Lupi. I hope I've said those names right. And I've already ordered the vinyl soundtrack. It's that good. The performance, you're looking at 60 frames per second, whether you're playing on Switch 1 or 2. While I haven't had any crashes, load times were a little longer than I would like, even if you were playing on Switch 2. However, load transitions are few and far between. The sheer number of details within this pixel animation meant that I was stopping and just admiring it half the time. Bar a couple of minor issues, visuals and performance score 19 out of 20. The music is incredible, the sound effects perhaps not as good. Sound and audio scores 19 out of 20 as well. Turbo Kid will set you back £15.69 on the eShop, and it's a 2.3GB download. The main story is going to take around 10 to 15 hours. Remember, you've got those 2 campaigns to play through, but there are lots of secrets, including the aforementioned artwork. Premium edition games do have a standard edition on pre-order at the moment, which I've already ordered, that will cost 35 quid, so there are some options for physicals for those people interested. Do I think it offers good value? Yes, it definitely does. Perhaps not the best within the genre, but still very good. Value scores 18 out of 20. If you're considering buying Turbo Kid, I highly recommend watching the film first. It definitely heightened my experience and gave me an appreciation of the amount of work they've put in to make it feel authentic. It gets a SwitchUp score of 91%. Have you been playing this one already? Did you pick it up at launch? A cheers to the developers, you have made a cracking game here, and it actually falls within a week where there's a good 2 or 3 really interesting Switch 1 releases, so make sure your notifications are on and I'll see you on the next one. Big thanks to our Patreons, our members, all of you that enjoy the content. For all things Switch, all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers guys, see ya!